Counsel, I had one other thing to give you. If you want to just give one to opposing counsel, thank you. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I don't need to wait for Mr. Argie to make the comment. So I got an email from Deputy Clerk Tanuma that said that State Counsel, I think, wanted a printed copy of the jury instructions. So I made it, and then I don't know why I thought of it, but I did. I didn't realize that Mr. Argie had spoken to the police, so I never added the standard instruction about statements to the police, which is the second piece of paper I just provided to you. If you want that in, I'll put it in. If you don't want it in.
I'm going to take that and I'll let you know.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So I apologize for not having it in there automatically. morning, everyone. We're back on the record in the state of New Hampshire versus William Argie. Counsel had indicated that they'd like to address the court before we bring the jury in, and so we are all together without the jury.
Yes, Judge. It's not an immediate issue, but it's of such weight that we thought we should bring it to the court and also other parties' attention. So we anticipate resting the state's case tomorrow morning, and Mr. Argie very well may testify. And last night I was preparing for cross-examination of Mr. Argie, and I was going through my notes of the defense opening, and if you recall the defense opening, counsel talked about specific conversations that Mr. Argie had with his wife, private marital conversations the night before she died. And we do not believe that the defense has obtained the necessary waiver of marital privilege from the executor of Ms. Argie's estate, who is Mr. Gaudet, who is her father. Now, in order for the state to get Ms. Argie's medical records and to have the physician who testified yesterday appear in court, we got a waiver from the executor of Ms. Argie's estate, who was Mr. Gaudet. That marital privilege survives her death, and we do not believe that the defense has gotten the necessary waiver. So we wanted to put this on defense counsel's radar, your radar, and also Mr. Gaudette's radar. We have not talked to Mr. Gaudet, either ourselves or the victim witness advocate, about this matter. We do not intend to do so. That is beyond our role as prosecutors. So we will not be advising him, informing him, or influencing in any way what his decision is. But there appears to be a valid privilege that would preclude the substance of any privileged marital communications to be admitted testimony.
Rule 504 precludes when one client is testifying against a spouse, testifying to privileged marital conversations. Here, Bill was not testifying against Maureen. Our opening included sort of generalities of a conversation that was had the night before her death. Bill can certainly testify to his own statements here, but again, he's not testifying against Maureen in any kind of matter. We would argue that the privilege does not apply here.
Okay.
So we are not relying on that section of 504. We're relying on the subsequent section of 504, which counsel has omitted. Nor shall either be allowed in any case to testify as to any matter which in the opinion of the court would lead to a violation of marital confidence. According to the opening statement, they were talking about pending divorce, which is essentially relevant to the marital relationship. It's irregardless of whether Mr. Argie's would be talking about his own statements. The privilege applies to what he said as well as what his deceased wife said.
I'm not expecting either side to give me a full briefing on the issue. I appreciate Attorney Hinckley bringing it to the court's attention as well, defense counsel. So, obviously you continue to think about it, Attorney Pervin-Dunn or Attorney Nye, and we can talk further about it as the day progresses. Okay? Thank you.
That is a matter that the state wanted to bring to the court's attention.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else from the defense?
No.
Okay, well, we'll get the jury, and thank you. Appreciate it.
be seated.
Morning, Judge. The state would like to continue questioning Ms. Littman.
You may, Ms. Littman, let me remind you, you remain under oath from yesterday.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So when we broke for the day yesterday, we had been talking about the processing of 118 West Road conducted by you and other investigators pursuant to the investigation, right?
Yes.
And the room that we had stopped off at yesterday was the upstairs bathroom.
Yes.
So I want to continue on going to the bedroom next to the bathroom. So this is a photograph that we saw yesterday, and it's looking into the bathroom. As one goes to the right from this bathroom, what room is to the right?
The master bedroom.
And is that the bedroom where Maureen Argie's body was found?
It is.
So the next slide, I'm showing you one of the photographs from State Exhibit 69. Is this the bedroom next to the bathroom and the bedroom in which Ms. Argie's body was found?
Yes, it is.
And was this photo taken after her body had been removed from the bedroom?
Yes.
And with respect to where her body was found, it was in this bed that we're seeing here?
Yes.
But again, for this photograph, her body has been removed?
Correct.
Now, the next photograph is an enlargement of the photo that we just saw, and it's focusing on the carpeted area to the entryway of that bedroom. Yesterday, you had talked about some apparent blood staining in front of the bathroom leading into the bedroom.
Yes.
Do we see some more of this apparent blood staining in this photograph?
You do. Down here. Here.
The photo that we just viewed before this one, again, Ms. Argie's body had been removed from the bedroom. Were photographs also taken where her body was found, including when you accompanied the assistant deputy medical examiner to view her body initially?
Yes, they were.
Are some of those photos taken States Exhibits 70 through 77, which are in front of you?
Yes.
So let's go through those photographs.
Okay.
I'm going to start first with States Exhibit 70. Where is Ms. Argie's body in this photograph?
Her body is right here.
And does this photograph also document some apparent blood stains on the bed?
Yes, it does.
And where are there some apparent blood stains on the bed?
You can see dark right here, but blood stains here and then over here.
And when you indicated blood stains here, did you mean on the headboard or on the pillowcase?
On the pillowcase itself, on the corner.
So the next slide is States Exhibit 71. Her body is not visible in this photograph, right?
Correct.
Was bedding moved to cover her body, or was bedding in the same position as when her body was found in the bedroom?
That's the same position as her body was found in the bedroom.
And her body is actually under the bedding here?
Yes, it is.
And although we could see her body in the other photograph, it's just a different perspective, and that's why we can't see it here.
Correct.
Do we also see some apparent blood staining on the bed?
Yes, you can.
And
Over
can you point
on
that out
this
for the jurors?
side over here.
The next slide is States Exhibit 72. Where is Ms. Argie's body in this photograph?
Her body is right here.
And again, do we see more of that apparent blood staining?
Yes. All on the other side of the bed.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to suggest that earlier. Attorney Hinckley, unless you think it's going to interfere with your
It will
presentation.
not, thank you.
Okay,
Did
thank you.
want me to
That's
go
much
back?
clearer. I think you should.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So let's believe we're on States Exhibit 70.
Yes,
And where again is Ms. Argie's body in this photograph?
right here.
And you pointed out the apparent blood staining, if you could do that again.
Right here. And then you
And
can,
here, going back to here, this again is on the pillowcase and not on the head.
correct, right on the pillowcase corner. And then you can now see with better lighting, so there's some blood stains over here.
And the next photograph is States Exhibit 71. This is the one where we can't see your body. Your body is still on the bed, though, right?
Correct.
And you pointed out some apparent blood staining. Where is that again?
On the other side, over here. then you can see the corner of the pillowcase a little better here.
And where we left off, this is State's Exhibit 72. Again, where is her body?
Her body is right on the right side of the bed here.
Her body, is it in the same position that it was in the last two photographs that we saw?
Yes.
So her body has not been moved from this photograph from the previous two photographs?
No, it has not.
So here we have the bedding that is covering her body. And the next photograph, State's Exhibit 73, has that bedding been removed?
Yes, it has.
And how generally was Ms. Argie dressed when she was found?
She was dressed in a nightshirt, night pants, pajamas, and socks.
And we can't see the socks in this photograph. They're covered up by the bedding. But if you can describe those socks for the jurors in terms of color.
Sure, the socks were white with blue and red stripes.
And we've gone over the apparent blood stains on the bed we see on the corner of the pillow and here. Were there any apparent blood stains on Ms. Argie's white socks?
No, there were not.
Now, in this photo, in Ms. Argie's exposed skin area here, we have discoloration, a purplish pink discoloration.
Yes.
Based on your experience, what does such discoloration indicate?
Sure, so that purple pink discoloration is from lividity or livor mortis, and that's when the blood stops circulating, the red blood cells pool at the lowest point based on gravity where the body is.
So basically, this is blood that has fallen due to gravity to the
Correct.
lowest point.
Yes.
Our next photograph is State's Exhibit 74. What portion of Ms. Argie's body do we see here?
You see her back, her neck, and the back of her head, as well as her ear.
Now, in the previous photograph, we saw some discoloration to her waist area. Do we see such similar discoloration in her body in this photo?
You can see it a little bit in her neck, kind of the front, and her ear,
right here.
yes.
But we don't see any at the back or neck right here.
None in the back, nope.
So the next slide is going to be State's Exhibit 75. First of all, at the top we have this blue colored object. What is that blue colored object up there?
That's a nitrile glove.
So that's from somebody turning Ms. Argie's body over?
Yes,
Either yourself or another investigator or the ADM?
Correct.
Assistant Deputy Medical Examiner?
yes.
And do we see some more discoloration to Ms. Argie's body in this photograph?
Yes, you can see the lividity in the front of her neck and the front of her face.
We also see some at her fingers.
Correct.
Now, we also see some blood here. We see some blood on Ms. Argie's face and also a pool of blood. Is this where her face was located on the mattress?
Yes, it was.
Now, again, based on your experience, what did this blood on her face and the pooling under her face appear to be?
That's purge.
And if you can explain for the jurors what purge is.
Based on the location of the body and when a person is deceased, there are decompositional fluids, bloody fluids that seep out of the body through the orifices, usually the mouth and the nose.
So this isn't indicative of trauma. It's indicative of the natural body decomposition process?
Yes.
So the next slide is State's Exhibit 76. First, again, we see someone in this photo with Ms. Argie. Is this another, either the ADME or an investigator?
Yes, I know that's the ADME based on her shirt.
And does this appear to show the discoloration again to Ms. Argie's face?
Yes.
And we also see some discoloration to her stomach as well?
Yes.
And if you can explain for the jurors, we see what appears to be a patterning on her stomach of the discoloration and also what appears to be the natural color of her skin. If you can explain that for the jurors?
Sure, that's from the sheet, the bedding that she's laying on top of, and it's folded, so some of the body is quite touching the bedding, and it causes that discoloration, the non-discoloration.
So the next slide that we're going to turn to is State's Exhibit 77. What is depicted in this photo?
That is the right side of Maureen's neck. and face.
And again, we have blue here, and that's either probably the medical, assistant deputy medical
Yes.
examiner's hand. In addition to discoloration, do we see darker discoloration to Ms. Argie's neck in this photograph?
Yes, right here.
Now, were photographs also taken of the bedroom where Ms. Argie's body was found after her body was removed as part of the processing of the crime scene?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 69 shows some of the many photographs that were taken afterwards.
Yes.
And as for the photograph on the upper left, this is the photograph we saw before we saw all the photos of Ms. Argie.
Correct.
I think that's the next slide, which we've just discussed. And again, Ms. Argie's body has been removed from this particular photo. And
Yes.
ones that follow. We go to the next photograph. Now, with respect to apparent bloodstains, we had seen them on the bed before. Do we also see them on the floor by the bed?
Yes, on the carpet.
Turning to the last of the vertical photographs in State's Exhibit 69. Before we saw the picture of Ms. Argie's face with the apparent blood purge on her face and also on the mattress beneath her face, do we see that apparent blood purge on this photo as well?
Yes, it's right here. Sorry for my shaky hand.
And on the right side, there is that gold-colored pillow that indicated some staining on before.
Yes.
And this next photograph, I believe, is a closer shot of that pillow.
Yes,
And does that also show the blood stain or apparent blood stain that you had noted before?
right here, yes.
And again, do we see that pooling of apparent blood purge in this photo as well?
You do, in the corner over here.
So that pillow was positioned with the apparent blood on the upper right-hand corner, away from the other blood that you observed on the bed.
Yes.
And again, the blood staining on the pillow is right here.
Yes.
So the last two photos, State's Exhibit 78, do they depict the chest of drawers that were by the foot of the bed in the master bedroom where Ms. Argie's body was found?
Yes, they do.
So let's first focus on the photograph on the left.
Sure.
Here do we see additional blood staining on the carpeted floor?
Yes, you do. Here.
Did you also see and document in this particular photograph an apparent shoe impression?
I did,
Where is that?
right here,
And
circling
the
it.
next photograph is an enlargement? And
Yes.
Is that an enlargement of the apparent shoe impression?
Yes,
And is that apparent shoe impression heading to or from the bedroom entrance door?
it's heading to the entrance door.
And again, when Ms. Argie was found, was she wearing shoes?
No.
Now, yesterday, one of the topics that we discussed were items that were found in the house as part of the processing. And one of the items that we talked about was a receipt from Home Depot. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall what that receipt was for purchase of?
It was for utility knives.
Now, were there any corresponding packaging for utility knives seen and documented on the chest of drawers by the bed?
Yes.
And let's turn to the second of those two photographs from State Exhibit 78, the chest of drawers. Here we see some apparent blood pooling and staining on the floor again.
Yes.
Do we also see in this photo packaging for utility knives?
Yes, you do, right up here, orange and white packaging.
And this last photo, is that going to be an enlargement of the photo that we're looking at now,
Yes.
focusing on that packaging? Again, do we see the packaging right here, and here's what appears to be a drawing of a razor blade in there?
Yes.
A razor blade. The packaging for the utility knife that was found on the chest of drawers, was that open or closed?
It was open.
And was the utility knife found inside the bedroom where Maureen Argie's body was found, or in the nearby bathroom?
No.
One moment. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
witness be released.
Any objection? Okay. Ma'am, you can step down, you can stay or leave as you choose. Thank you.
Your Honor.
The state calls Jodi Marazzi to the stand.
Ma'am, if you could remain standing and raise your right hand so I can swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide this court and jury shall be the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? Thank you. Please be seated. Once you're settled in, if you could state your full name for our court reporter and spell your last name.
Jodi Marazzi, Marazzi.
And Ms. Marazzi, let me remind you, because you're wearing a mask, your voices are going to project the same way. So if you could try to keep your voice up so that everybody in the courtroom can hear you.
Understood.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Marazzi.
Good morning.
So, Ms. Marazzi, before we get started, in the spring of 2019, was your last name Johnson?
It was.
Okay, so, but now we'll refer to you as Ms. Marazzi.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Ms. Marazzi, in the spring of 2019, where were you employed?
AFC Urgent Care.
And where, specifically, what AFC Urgent Care did you work for?
The Stoneham location.
Did you also work in the North Andover location?
Prior to that, yes.
Are you familiar with Sarah Lemery's?
Yes, she was the manager of those locations.
I'm sorry, she was the manager at?
Of the North Andover and Methuen locations.
Oh, okay, thank you. Are you familiar with William Argie?
Yes,
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please identify him and describe an article of clothing for the record?
He's wearing the suit over there.
Your Honor, would the record please reflect the witness has identified the defendant?
It will.
Ms. Marazzi, at some point, did you work with the defendant?
I did.
About when was the last time that you remember working with him?
Probably 2017.
Okay. And what type of work was the defendant doing at that time?
He was a physician's assistant.
Do you remember, was he full-time? Was he per diem? Was he part-time?
I'm not sure what his status was.
Okay. And in April 2019 now, did the defendant contact you about employment?
Yes,
How did he contact you?
text message.
Had you and the defendant exchanged text messages in the past?
No.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Thank you. Ms. Marazzi, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 50. If you could just take a look in there. I'm going to direct your attention right here to Tuesday, April 2nd. We'll start right up at the bottom. Do these text messages look familiar to you?
Yes,
And are these the text messages that you exchanged with the defendant on Tuesday, April 2nd?
they are.
Okay, we're going to talk about those, but I'll leave those with you for reference. Okay, again, so the text messages you have in front of you are from Tuesday, April 2nd.
Correct.
Okay. When the police spoke with you in regard to their investigation, did you provide them copies of these text messages you had with the defendant?
I did.
Okay, so here is a copy of the first text message enlarged on the screen here. And I'm going to read the messages, and then I'll have some questions for you. So again, we're going to start up at the top here. Tuesday, April 2nd at 9:26 a.m. So the first text message reads, "Hey, this is Bill Argie, writing this with my tail between my legs and wondering if you think you could help me with getting a job at your site. If you could, I would be grateful and in your debt." So again, where were you working in April 2019?
The Stoneham location of AFC.
Okay, and what was your specific role at that time?
I was the clinic manager.
All right, so you respond, and I believe it might be a little bit hard for the jury to see the green today. Would it be okay if we just dim the lights a little bit? Thank you. Okay, so you respond, I will reach out to Dave for Sue, sure. And then the response, thanks. So when you said, so the first text message in gray, was that text message received by you?
Yes.
And then these green text messages, were those text messages that you sent?
Yes.
So when you refer to Dave, who are you referring to?
He was the owner of those locations.
And do you know Dave's full name?
Dave Adams.
Okay. And then you got a response to that text message, thanks. And I'm sorry, you just have to verbally say.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, now directing your attention to the next portion, Tuesday, April 2nd at 1:22 p.m. In the green text message, it says, remind me in a few hours to send you an email. You can send your resume. I'm just slammed right this moment. And again, the green are text messages sent by you.
Correct.
So the response you got is K, TY. What did you understand TY to mean?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, now going to the next slide, next portion of text messages. Tuesday, April 2nd, 3:46 p.m. You received a text message saying, knowing urgent care, you're probably still slammed, but reminder to seen that email. Thanks, me4pa@comcast.net. Bill. And that is a text message you received.
Correct.
You then wrote koreo@afcurgentcare.com. And was that an email address that you provided?
Yes.
And whose email address was that?
The medical director.
Okay, and then you, it looks like another text message that you wrote. Did something happen with Lisa and Tom? This place is run much differently. There's an active medical director and actual policies and procedures. I love it here. And what were you referring to in that text message?
Just the difference of how the companies were run.
Okay. The defendant then responds, good, no, nothing happened, but just not getting enough hours. I like organization and policies with an active med director. And in response to that, you wrote, yeah, I think it would be good. I told the owner, and he said to send her the resume so they will be looking out for it. And that's how you responded to the defendant at that time?
Correct.
Okay, so now directing your attention to the next slide up at the top. Is this Dave's email or wife's? Oh, sorry, duh, I understand now. And were those text messages that you received?
Yes.
And you responded, the medical director, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then the next text message is, there is a meeting in North Andover / Methuen tonight. Is this medical director at your side going to be MD over there? Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And then you responded, she is the MD for all sites. By MD, what were you referring to there?
Medical director.
Okay. And then the next text message that you received states, TY, I will send it to here in the next 30 minutes. You responded, sounds good. Did I read that accurately?
Correct.
And then the next text message that you received says, Dr. Corio, correct? And how did you respond there?
Dr. Oreo was her name.
Okay, and then the next text message reads, Chris is her first name. Okay, and you were
Correct.
referring to the email address K Oreo?
Correct.
And then this text message here reads KTY. And again, TY you understood to mean thank you.
Correct.
And that's a text message that you received from the defendant.
Correct.
Did you hear from the defendant again following that text exchange?
I did not.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Morning.
Good morning.
So when you received the text message from Bill, and he asked about a potential position, you had no problems recommending him to the medical director?
Correct.
And so that's why you gave Bill the information to send his resume?
Correct.
And that's why you answer questions about his attendance to the meeting that night?
I'm not sure what his attendance to the meeting was, just about the director being there.
Okay, but you knew there was a meeting and there was going to be a meeting?
I wasn't aware of the meeting. I wasn't involved in the meeting.
Okay, so you didn't know that there was a meeting for all employees of the,
No, I was unaware at that point that we were even merging,
okay. Then how did you know that the medical director would be there?
because she's the director for all of our sites, I was saying.
Okay.
We have 4 sites that I was currently working at.
That's good. Let me have a moment.
Sure.
No further questions. Thank you for your time.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
And may this witness be excused by both sides?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ma'am, you can step down, you can stay, or leave as you choose. Thank you. And you can just leave that document there. Thank you.
Your Honor, the state calls Matthew Gaudette to the stand.
So would you raise your right hand, please? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide this court and jury shall be the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. And as you know, if you could get close enough to the microphone and give us your full name, spelling your last name.
Matthew, 2 T's, Gaudette, Gauddet.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you familiar with William Argie?
Yes,
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please identify him and describe an article of clothing he's wearing for the record?
He has a black suit on, sitting on the defendant's chair.
Your Honor, would the record please reflect the witness has identified the defendant?
It will.
Did you know Maureen Argie?
I did.
How did you know her?
She was my sister.
Did you and Maureen live in the same household growing up?
We did.
Who else lived with you?
My parents.
Was she your older or younger sister?
Older.
Did Maureen have a nickname?
Mo,
How would you describe your relationship with Maureen?
we were close growing up. We were only 2 years apart, so we were very close.
Did you remain close into adulthood?
Yes,
Did you keep in contact with Maureen through the years and into your adulthood?
yes.
How did you two keep in contact?
Phone calls, text messages, emails, in person.
How often did you two speak?
We would text back and forth a couple times every week, every 2 weeks. couple times a month, we would talk on the phone. We tried to see each other over holidays, cookouts, birthday parties.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 42, which is a phone number chart the jury is familiar with. Does this chart accurately reflect your phone number in the spring of 2019?
Yes,
And looking at the number for Maureen up here, does that number also look familiar for Maureen in the spring of 2019?
yes.
So turning back to a little bit about Maureen, did Maureen have any children?
Yes, she had 2 children,
And what were their names?
Ella and Gavin,
Did you see Maureen interact with Ella and Gavin?
all the time, yes.
What did you see with respect to their relationship?
She was very caring. She was very proud of them. She would always send pictures of them going to sporting events or when they got good grades at school. Or she was very proud mother, and she wanted to share all their accomplishments with us.
Was she an attentive mother?
Yes,
Did she care and provide for her children from what you saw?
yes.
From what you saw of Maureen's interactions with her children and discussions that you had with her before she died, did she have any intention of leaving her kids?
Absolutely not.
What about relinquishing custody of them to the defendant?
No,
From your life growing up with Maureen and what you saw, did she have any health or medical issues in her adulthood?
no,
Was Maureen ever hospitalized as an adult for illness or a medical condition other than childbirth?
no.
Over the years that you grew up with, spoke with, and interacted with Maureen, how would you describe her demeanor?
Maureen was she was very soft-spoken and reserved when you first met her. She had a giant smile that could light up a room, and she had a very contagious laughter. She had a inner strength and a natural ability that she always had growing up through high school. She always excelled at school. She always did great at sports. It seemed like everything just came naturally to her, and she was just always outgoing, and she wanted to help people and support people whenever she could.
Based on your many interactions with your sister, did she ever appear suicidal?
No,
Were you aware of who Maureen's friends were in the spring of 2019?
yes.
And can you just mention some of her friends?
Megan Santos, Kelly Hobbs, Karen Argie, Cindee Tanuma,
And are you currently married?
yes.
Who are you married to?
Erin Gaudette.
What was Erin's relationship like with Maureen?
They were very close. They were like sisters. They would oftentimes that they would get together, they would communicate. My wife didn't necessarily need me to be in the conversation to talk with her.
Are you aware of Erin's phone number in spring of 2019?
Yes,
So I'm showing you a portion of a communications chart, States Exhibit 43. And I would just like to draw your attention here to this highlighted portion. Does this accurately reflect Erin's phone number from the spring of 2019?
yes,
With respect to both Maureen and the defendant, did they each have their own vehicle in the spring of 2019?
yes,
Are you familiar with those vehicles?
yes.
And can you just tell the jury who drove which vehicle primarily?
Maureen drove a Nissan Murano, and the defendant drove a pickup truck. I'm not sure what brand.
Okay, so now let's turn to the days before Maureen's death. Were you in regular contact with Maureen at that time?
Yes.
What was the primary topic that you two discussed?
We were trying to figure out upcoming plans for Easter that year.
Okay. Were you also discussing with her plans about moving out of her home and a divorce with the defendant?
Yes,
Were you and your family supportive of her plans to move out and to proceed with the divorce of her husband?
Yes.
And when you spoke with Maureen about these plans, what was her tone of voice and her demeanor like during these conversations?
Maureen wanted to go through with the divorce, but she was worried about how it would impact her children. That was her main primary focus. She didn't want the children to have to go through it and for the children to be affected by it in any way, and that was one of the reasons, that was her reason for staying and trying to make it work constantly.
Did she feel satisfied with her decision to move forward, though?
Yes.
I'm showing you, so we're going to direct your attention right here to April 1st. And then I'm going to direct your attention to an email, States Exhibit 56, which is dated April 1st, 2019. Are you familiar with this email?
Yes.
And I'm just going to direct your attention up to the to section. Is your email address located in here?
Yes.
And it's Gaudette79@yahoo.com?
Yes.
Okay, so we've already read this email with the jury, but generally, what was Maureen speaking about in this email?
Maureen was trying to coordinate all of her friends and family coming up to help her move things out of the house and to get the house ready to eventually sell.
And in this specific email, was she talking about Saturday, April 6th, Sunday, April 14th, and or Monday, April 15th as dates to do that?
Yes, for people to come up and help her.
Do you remember responding to that email?
Yes.
Okay. And just generally, when you responded to her email, were you helping her kind of figure out ways and order in which to do things?
Yes.
So I'm now going to direct your attention to an email dated April 2nd, 2019. And again, this is another email that the jury has seen before. This is States Exhibit 57. And again, is this specific email, it has you listed first on the to line, correct?
Yes.
All right. And does this appear to be kind of an email in response to you suggesting the order that things should be done?
Yes, I had suggested to Maureen that if people were gonna go up and start painting, maybe people shouldn't be up there moving stuff out, or people shouldn't be cleaning, that we should kind of set a timetable for certain things to be done in a certain order.
Okay. Do you remember also receiving an email addressed only to you on April 2nd, 2019?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm showing you States Exhibit 92. Does this appear to be that email that you received sent from Maureen?
Yes.
All right. And I'm going to read this first, and then I'll have some questions for you. So it reads, so I have a plan laid out. Cal and Karen will be over 4:13 and 4:14 to just do painting. I am trying to get Dad to come up when you come on 4:14 so you can work on the little, quote, fix it, end quote, stuff together. I have no idea what he may or may not do. I can't depend on him completing anything because he changes his mind every second about whether he will help or not. When Maureen was referring to he changes his mind every second, what was your understanding of who she was referring to?
The defendant.
The email then goes on to say, moving stuff to Cindee's will happen on Saturday. So in relation to April 2nd, was she referring to that upcoming Saturday, April 6th?
Yes.
It goes on, Mom and Dad convinced me to get a professional cleaner. The fact that they are paying for it helped me decide. And I am getting a price for someone to clean one side of the house that has surface mold. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Now I'd like to direct your attention to April 3rd, the day before your sister died. I'm showing you States Exhibit 58. This is an email that the jury has also seen before, dated April 3rd. And we're actually going to start down here at the bottom, April 3rd at 8:32 p.m. Maureen Argie at Yahoo wrote, "Lost my phone, call Billy, 603-845-7815 in 15 minutes if I don't find." And you are one of the people that received this email?
Yes.
And then at 9:01 p.m., another email sent, "I found it, sorry." Is that correct?
Yes.
And who else received this email?
Both of my parents.
Did you talk to Maureen at all on April 3rd after receiving this email, after this email was sent?
No.
So I believe you testified to this at the beginning, but in addition to talking to Maureen about her plans and her divorce with the defendant, were you also talking about upcoming plans in regard to Easter?
Yes.
I'm now showing you State's Exhibit 54. Do you recognize this text message?
Yes.
And do you remember text messaging your sister on Thursday, April 4th?
I do.
Okay, so let's just start right at the top of this text message, Mo. And who are you referring to here when you say Mo?
My sister Maureen.
Okay, so here, right here, Thursday, 9:50 a.m., and you recall this as being April 4th,
Yes.
correct? This is at 9:50 a.m., the text message reads, "Considering Mom and Dad will be home now, I'm gonna tell Kathy I'm gonna plan on going to Sue Chang's with them. I'll probably call next month or two's so I can text you this weekend and see what you're thinking." And it says delivered. So was this a text message that you sent to Maureen or received?
Sent.
And generally, what were you talking about in this text message?
Maureen was trying to decide whether or not to come down for Easter. She said she wasn't sure what the defendant was going to do, and if he had asked her to stay home and do a family Easter, she would maybe consider that. She was worried about not being with her children on Easter if she came down. So we were discussing whether or not she would be down.
Okay. And below that is a text message, 9:52 a.m., Thursday, April 4th, that says, "Okay." Is that a text message that you received from Maureen's cell phone?
Yes.
So that was a text message that was sent to you from Maureen's cell phone.
Yes.
Now looking at State's Exhibit 43, the communications chart, does this chart accurately reflect the 9:50 a.m. text message that Maureen received from you?
Yes.
And does it accurately reflect at 9:52 a.m. on April 4th the text message that was sent from Maureen's phone to you?
Yes.
I have no further questions at this time. Thank you.
Any cross-examination? Pardon me, any cross-examination?
Yes. Maureen reached out to you in the spring of 2019 and let you know she was considering leaving her marriage.
Yes.
Was that a surprise to you that she was considering leaving her marriage?
No.
She had spoken with you about her marriage in the past.
Yes.
She'd been confiding in you about her marriage for several years.
Not all aspects, but yes.
Not all
Certain
aspects
parts of it,
the
yes.
marriage. But things have been rocky for her at home
Yes.
for 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
She would tell you that things were not going well in the marriage. But then
Yes.
she would tell you that Bill was getting help?
Yes, they were supposed to be seeing a marriage counselor. He was supposed to be going to meetings for gambling, and he would start it, and then he would stop, and then he would go, and then he would stop.
Okay. So during those years, Maureen would sometimes consider leaving and then decide to stay?
Yes.
When she finally decided to leave for good in the spring of 2019, was that a relief to you that she was leaving?
Yes, I had been encouraging her to do it.
You'd been encouraging her to leave? And in the spring of 2019, you checked in with her regularly about her plans to leave?
Yes,
You wanted to make sure that she was on top of things?
Yes.
That she wasn't going to change her mind?
correct.
Did you ever help Maureen pay for an attorney?
I did.
When was that?
I honestly, I'm not sure.
Was that in the spring of 2019, or was it in a previous year?
I believe it was the previous year.
In the years that Maureen and Bill were married, you never saw Bill behaving violently towards her physically?
No.
Maureen never told you that she felt unsafe at home?
Later on, Maureen said that she thought he was looking at her cell phone and looking at her text messages and reading her emails and stuff.
Okay. But Maureen never complained that there was physical violence in the home?
No.
Did you speak with other members of your family about Maureen and Bill's marriage?
Yes.
Did you speak with members of Bill's family about Maureen and Bill's marriage?
No.
Fair to say, though, that you and Maureen's family were supportive of her decision to leave?
Absolutely.
You all wanted her to leave, Bill?
Yes.
I have no further questions for you. Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, may this witness be excused by both sides?
Yes, you may. Yes.
Okay, sir, you can step down. Thank you.
State call Cindee Tanuma.
If you could raise your right hand, I'll swear you in, okay? Do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide this court and jury shall be the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? I'm sorry?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. And once you're connected close enough to that microphone and settled in, if you could state your full name for our court reporter and spell your name for.
Cindee Tanuma, Tanuma,
And will you spell your first name as well?
Cindee.
Thank you. And Ms. Tanuma, I'll just remind you that because we're wearing masks, it's harder to hear. And so if you could project your voice much louder than you'd normally. Okay, thank you.
If you don't mind beginning on telling the jurors where you work and what do you do?
I work at Community Caregivers of Greater Derry. It's a nonprofit volunteer caregiving group, and I'm the executive director.
And for about how long have you worked there for?
17 years.
And for about how long have you had that position, executive director?
15 years.
Back in 2019, you knew Maureen Argie?
Yes.
How did you know her?
We were close friends.
For about how long had you known Maureen back in 2019? About
15 years. She actually applied for the position that I ended up getting, and when she didn't get it, she still wanted to become involved with the agency, and she was one of the first volunteers that I trained.
How would you characterize the nature of your friendship with Maureen over the years?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Very mutually satisfying. We had kids very similar ages, and I think we both got an equal amount out of our relationship.
Did you keep in regular contact with Maureen over the many years that she was your friend?
Yes.
And how would you maintain contact with Maureen over the years?
She would drop into my office to talk. After she got the kids off to school, my office was right near the interstate where she got on, so oftentimes she would just stop in. We would talk on the phone on both our ways to work, because we both commuted to work at the same time. We occasionally text, but not to really just to set something up, not to go back and forth. We mostly talked on the phone or in person.
And was that the type of friendship you had where she could just stop by whenever just to talk to a friend?
Yes, and I made sure she knew that. Yep, I had my own private office, and she would come and shut the door, and we could connect.
Talk about anything and anything.
Yes.
What kind of activities would you do with Maureen over the years?
Oh gosh. Family birthday parties, meet at playgrounds, meet at McDonald's. Both our kids got up really early, and we wanted to do something with the kids before their morning nap because we were both religious about maintaining naps. And so we would often meet at McDonald's on Brown Avenue at 7 a.m. just to let the kids get some energy out, and then we go to a playground. We've been to state parks together, museums, fairs, anything that you take young children to, parks, swimming.
You talked about Maureen would just show up and you'd shut the door and you'd talk about pretty much everything and anything with her.
Yes.
Did you have the type of friendship with her in which you shared with each other the turmoils in your lives as well as the triumphs in your lives?
Yes.
Whether that be personal or professional turmoils and triumphs?
Yes.
And did you do that over the years with her?
Yes.
From your interactions with Maureen and from what you saw, did she have any long-term medical or health issues?
Not that I'm aware of.
Was she ever hospitalized for illness or medical condition during your friendship with her outside of that related to her pregnancies of her two kids?
Not that I'm aware of.
Over the many years that you knew Maureen, that you spoke with her, that you interacted with her in various settings, how would you describe her general demeanors for us?
Calm, even, funny, sensitive, intuitive. I don't know. She was pretty. She lowered my blood pressure. She was kind of good at grounding people. So she was kind of very good at staying, constant.
Other people described her as quiet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that she was quiet compared to someone else. Yeah, compared to other people. But it was like a different kind of quiet.
And was it you who told me monotonous Mo? Is that what it was? Maybe I'm mistaken the nickname for Mo.
Well, I always knew her as Maureen. I actually only kind of knew after her death that so many people called her Mo. I really just called her Maureen.
So my apologies. I was
It's okay.
thinking of someone else. Based on your many interactions with Maureen, your many conversations with her, at any point in the many years that you knew her, did you have any concerns that she may try to harm herself?
No.
And why do you say that?
Because she was basically a single mother. I mean, she was holding down the fort, so she was kind of keeping it all together. So I don't think that was a choice no, definitely not.
Even though you characterized her basically as a single mother, you knew at the time that she was married, right?
Yes,
And to whom was she married to?
Billy.
You talked about how she, in your words, a single mother. Did you spend time with Maureen and her kids?
A lot of time, my husband and I and our 2 kids and her and her 2 kids, yes.
And how so? What kind of things would you do with Maureen and her kids?
They'd come over, we'd go over there, we'd meet places, things that, everyone does with, young children, public free events. Most everything we did was free.
And were these regular occurrences that you'd have with Maureen?
Yeah, I would say once every, I don't know, month to 6 weeks, we would see each other, but we would talk, we would talk most weeks on the way to work.
And what
Yep.
did you see generally with respect to Maureen and her kids and their interaction?
Her with her kids,
Yes.
she was very loving, supportive, calm. She was a great mother. Keeping everything on track, food on the table, kids to activities, keeping everything straight.
Now, one of the ways that you talked that you would speak with Maureen or communicate with her was by cell phones.
Yeah.
And when you spoke with Maureen by cell phone, some people are talkers, some people are texters. How about you and your friend Maureen?
We talked mostly on the phone, but we did text towards the end because we were, just trying to coordinate there were a lot of balls in the air.
So I want to turn your attention. Can you see that? Okay.
My glasses are in my purse.
That's fine.
So-
I'll read it for you. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. So what we're looking at is something the jurors have seen many times before. For the record, it's State Exhibit 43. It's a cell phone communications chart, and this is for a cell phone number associated with your friend Maureen's cell phone. And it shows a text message on March 29th sent to a telephone number 603-548-7059. This number ending 7059 back in April of 2019, was that your cell phone number?
Yep, that is.
And although this shows, and again, you can't see it, but the jurors can, it says SMS, MSF, SMS, and the jurors are familiar, that's a text message. But you'd also speak with Maureen over the phone by call as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, in the weeks before Maureen's death, did she talk to you about her job plans?
Yes, she did.
And if you can share that with us.
Sure.
What she talked about with respect to her job
Because
plans.
it's obviously it's a great memory, but, she'd kind of put in the work, working in the housing buildings, and she really loved her job, but it didn't make that much money. And although she did, like kind of that middle management, kind of style, it was more her style. Someone retired, and she was very excited that they had asked her to interview. So she had had her first interview for a supervisor position, which is so kind of not, it was out of her comfort zone. So she was asking for some coaching because she knew I was a supervisor and was asking me for advice. And then she just got this bright smile on her face. And, things had been really tough. And so she just got a really big smile and she said, I'm going to make so much more, I'm going to make maybe $10,000, $15,000 more money. And she's like, I think we can do it. This will make it so I can be there on my own and do it. And this is what I need, but it's so scary. And I don't think she got, I'm not aware, but I don't think she got the second interview. But I know she would have gotten it. But yeah, she was really looking forward to a potential new position at the place that she had been for so many years. She said, Cindee, I can't wait to,
We can't go over,
yeah.
We can't go into what she said.
Sure.
But from how you're describing this
Yeah.
in your own demeanor, she seemed excited.
She was excited. Yeah.
It also sounds like you were excited for your friend.
I was.
So also in the weeks before her death, did she talk to you about her intents and plans with respect to the marriage that she had?
Yes.
And what did she indicate to you with respect to her plans and intentions?
It was more about the house and the physical separation than like the marriage is an entity. So it was more just saying that she Billy she wanted to take this opportunity that Billy was being agreeable to put the house on the market and settle some debt, and then she would have not the reason, but that would be the propellant for her to be able to physically separate from him and move in with Brenda. So we didn't so much talk about like legal matters or whatever, but this was the opportunity she had been waiting for to create some distance between them.
And in terms of what she intended, her plans in doing that and moving forward and moving on, what do you recall her telling you about that? How was she going to achieve that? Where was she going to stay? What was she going to do?
Oh, sure. So, she had, the second to last time I had seen her, she had said, can I take you up on that offer to, move some possessions into the house so we can declutter and start to stage the home? And I said, of course, we just moved in. We have, 1,000 square foot basement. It's yours. Do what you want. It's yours, for as long as you want. And so she was going to move into Brenda, her mother-in-law's home with Karen and her daughter and her 2 kids. And whether Brenda stayed there or stayed in Maine, I'm not sure how that was going to go. But she was very appreciative of how welcoming and accommodating that Brenda was being, and it was making her feel kind of safe and more sure that she could do it.
And you were also helping Maureen in these plans?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how so? You talked about storage at
Yep.
your basement?
Yep, storage, and then she was doing a couple, the weekend after her death was, obviously going to be when we were going to be fixing up, kind of all hands on deck, fixing the home up as much as we could for staging and for being put on the market. So after the kind of purge, we were going to focus on the house.
And when you say we and all hands on deck, it sounds like it was just more than you and Maureen helping her in these plans.
Oh, yeah.
And who are some of the other people who are helping your friend Maureen in this transition period?
Maddie and Aaron, her parents, Karen, Kelly, Brenda. I think that's it.
And from what you saw and heard, were Maureen's other friends and family members supportive of her plans moving on and away from the defendant?
very supportive.
And were you and her other friends and family members helping her as she transitioned away from her marriage and physically from the defendant?
Yes.
So I want to now go to a calendar. This is a calendar that the jurors have seen several times. This is State's Exhibit 91 for identification. And I want to focus your attention on the weekend before her death, which is March 30th and 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And did you see your friend Maureen that weekend?
I did.
And when you saw her that weekend, what was she doing?
She was just making trips to my house with Billy's pickup to move stuff into our basement. So she made two big purges, you know, and I could tell she was doing it quick, you know, not quickly, but like she just basically just threw whatever in there. Nothing was organized or in boxes. It was just really, you know, the thing is you're trying to sell your house and you want to not have photos be taken of all the stuff. So it was really just like, you know, toys and furniture that's not really needed and like clutter.
And that weekend before your friend's death, as she was moving belongings into your basement for storage, was she continuing to talk to you about her plans and intentions moving forward and away from the defendant?
Yes.
And we talked about what she talked about in terms of her intentions and plans, and that was the same that weekend?
Yes.
Did Maureen and you discuss plans about the following weekend and what she would be doing that following weekend?
Yes.
And what do you recall about Maureen talking about the following weekend, which would be this weekend of the 6th and the 7th?
Yep. I think it was trying to figure out who was available when for that weekend and the following weekend to do painting, fix like a to-do list, get more stuff. I think there was going to be additional trips to my house the following weekend too. So, and I don't know when she was going to be able to like rest her head somewhere else, but I do think that it was probably going to be, you know, close to that weekend was going to be the, you know, the first night, you know, away from the home.
Was also among the topics that your friend Maureen talked to you in the days before her death, making sure that the defendant did not have access to firearms. And that's just a
Yes,
yes or no.
yeah.
That's just a yes or no.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the following, getting back to the calendar, so Maureen was moving belongings into your house that weekend of the 30th and the
Yep.
31st, and also talking to you about plans and intentions and other matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
That following Monday and Tuesday, which would be April 1st and April 2nd, do you remember receiving group emails from Maureen expressing her plans and intentions?
Yes.
And the jurors have already seen these emails before, so we're not going to go through them in great detail.
Okay.
So, and I know you can't see them. Maybe if I read the first sentence, that will refresh your recollection. Okay? Yes?
Yes.
So the first one is State's Exhibit 56. This is from April 1st. It says, "Hi, I am sort of overwhelmed with everything, but I'm trying to get a plan together." Do you remember receiving an email from Maureen addressed to you and
Yes.
several other people?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
And then we have State's Exhibit 57, which again, the jurors have seen before. This is dated April 2nd. And this one starts out, "Maybe I need guidance, but my situation is different. I wanted painting and taking any stuff to Cindee's first." Do you recall an email along those lines?
Yes.
And from what you recall generally from those two emails, was what Maureen was saying in those emails consistent with discussions that she was having with you regarding her plans moving forward?
Yes.
Now, we talked about when you last saw your friend Maureen that weekend before her death.
Mm-hmm.
And we also briefly went over a couple of text messages, emails that
Mhm.
she sent to you and some other people. Sticking with April 2nd, the same day that this second group email was sent, did Maureen also send you two text messages that day?
Yeah.
And did you save those text messages and provide them to the investigators?
I did.
Now, that's State's Exhibit 53, and I know you can't see those, and I actually have them in a book as well, so bear with me.
Thank you.
And those are the text messages that you received from your friend on April 2nd?
Yes.
And again, these text messages were taken from your cell phone by investigators with your permission, right?
Yes.
So we have 3 photos here, but there are actually 2 text messages, right?
Yes, because
One
my
of the
phone
text
is so old.
messages
Yeah.
was long, so it had to go onto a 3rd screen.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with the text message that takes up 2 screens. And these were sent at 10:26 a.m. So what I'll do is I will read that and then I'll have a couple of follow-up questions, okay? From Maureen Argie, do you guys have any time Saturday to let me do some drop-offs with help? You don't have to lift a finger. I think plan is get everything out that needs to go to your house Saturday. And the following weekend, Kelly and Karen will paint and my brother/dad will fix stuff. Tuesday, April 2nd, 10:26 a.m. And that's a text message that you received from your friend Maureen, right?
Yep.
From your conversations and interactions with her, the reference to drop-offs, what is that a reference to?
Belongings.
And that's drop-offs to your house,
Mhm.
additional drop-offs?
Yeah.
And the same with the plan to get everything out that needs to go to your house, that again is a reference to storage that you're helping her with?
Yes.
And so the additional moving out was planned for that following Saturday, April 6th, according to the text message, right?
Yes.
So let's go to the second text message that you received from Maureen. And this was sent at 12:01 p.m. on Tuesday, April 2nd. That's fine because we have baseball field cleanup in the morning. I will give you a ballpark time and then can be more specific on Saturday. Do you know what Maureen's discussion of baseball field cleanup in the morning was a reference to?
I don't think she was coaching. I think, well, he was very, Gavin was very into baseball. So they probably, the same as in Goffstown, like, you know, beginning of the season, after all the snow melts, like all hands on deck, you know, if you're going to join the team, you know, the league that season, you should go and, you know, you should go and do your part and pick up sticks and rake and get out all the equipment, so.
And I will give you a ballpark time and then can be more specific on Saturday. What is Maureen talking about in that portion of the text message?
To come over and bring the rest of her, you know, the rest of the belongings. I think I had probably said to her, you know, I can't do it till after 10 or something like that. And she said, well, that's fine because we have something going on in the morning anyways.
And this was Saturday, April 6th?
Yes.
4 days from this text message sent to you by your friend on April 2nd?
Yes,
And that's the last time you ever heard from your friend?
it is.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Yes. Good morning.
Morning.
You knew Maureen for 15 years or so? before
Yes,
she died?
about, yep,
And the two of you were quite close, it sounds like.
yes.
over the years, Maureen confided in you about her marriage to Bill?
Yes.
And Maureen's marriage was unhappy for 3-4 years before she died?
It was after Gavin was born, so what was he, maybe, yeah, I would say, yeah, about that time.
Okay. And she would talk to you about her unhappiness in her marriage?
Yes,
She would talk to you about the problems at home?
yes.
And during that time, she would seriously contemplate divorce. Is that right?
Contemplate, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, yes.
Maureen would contemplate divorce, but she would wind up staying with Bill.
Yes, I don't think she'd found a good fit with any of the free consultations she had had. I think she was frustrated by the process, by the amount of money needed. I don't think she had found like the right supportive individual to help her through the process, and I really think that she, was trying to keep the. She really did want to keep I think she was conflicted because she did want to keep the family unit together for the children.
Okay. So Maureen did consult with attorneys over the years?
Yeah, I don't think yes. I can't tell you for how long. I think there were, I can't, but
Okay.
a couple years.
So it sounds like divorce was, in the spring of 2019, this is not the first time divorce has been brought up.
Oh, no.
Now, Maureen was not interested in a contentious legal battle, right?
Maureen's a peacemaker. She doesn't like conflict. I think she was trying to figure out, she didn't want to exacerbate anything. She didn't want to anger him any more than she needed to. She was just trying to make the wisest decisions for the situation that she was in.
Now, you testified that when she decided in the spring of 2019 to leave Bill, that you were supportive of that decision.
Yes.
You had wanted her to leave Bill before the spring of 2019, is that correct?
I really listened more than anything. That's what she needed from me, and she was getting strong opinions from almost everyone else, I think, in her life. I needed her to know that she could just talk. So, to be honest, I didn't often, and I regret this, but I didn't often share my personal opinion because I could see that it wasn't required.
Okay. It wasn't required because you thought others in her life were encouraging her to leave?
And anything I could say is something that she already knew, and I think it was mortifying for her to talk about. So I didn't want to, I just wanted to listen,
Okay.
typically.
You
Yeah.
thought Maureen was embarrassed or mortified, you said, to discuss her marital problems?
She was a private person. She would always start every, conversation or drop in, she'd say, I don't want to burden you, or I don't want to make this your problem, or I don't want to always come to you and, talk about this. And I'd always say, I love our visits. I'm glad I can be of help. So, she would always have like that text message. She would say, you don't have to lift a finger. That was just like her because she felt bad enough. So.
Maureen never discussed her mental health with you, is that correct?
No, I mean, I know that they were trying counseling.
They were in marital counseling?
Yep, and
Maureen never discussed a depression diagnosis with you?
no,
She never talked to you about treatment options for depression?
no.
So we saw a couple of emails that Maureen sent to you and a number of others.
Sure, yes,
That included Bill's mother, Brenda,
yes,
and Bill's twin sisters.
yep,
It included Maureen's parents and her brother and her brother's wife, Erin.
yes,
This was a sort of listserv, is that right, of folks who were going to help Maureen through the process?
yes,
I think you called it Team Maureen.
yes.
So fair to say Maureen had people on her side supporting her through this divorce process?
Through the move, yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes,
And you were in communication with some of those other people as well, with Kelly and Karen, or with Brenda about the moving plans?
no,
Okay,
no.
okay,
I've become closer to them after she was deceased. I really just saw them at birthday parties.
okay. So after Maureen's death, you have grown closer, you said, to some of Bill's family members?
Yeah,
After Maureen's death, you also spent some time with the Argie's neighbors, the Langs, is that correct?
yes,
You spent about 2 hours at their house.
yes,
And at that meeting, you all talked about Maureen,
yes,
and you talked about Bill.
yeah.
And you met with the Langs before or after you spoke with the police?
Before. It was when I drove to the house. I was dropping off boxes for the move, and I had seen the commotion and didn't know what had happened, and I went next door.
Okay. Now, over the years, it sounds as though you were closer with Maureen than you were with Bill.
Yeah,
But you did see Bill and Maureen together
yeah.
throughout the years?
Hmm. Yeah, at birthday parties, but never on outings. Just if we were to go to Chuck E. Cheese or to their home.
Okay.
Yes,
And when you saw Bill and Maureen interact, you never saw physical violence between the two of them?
no,
You never saw Bill threaten physical violence?
no,
Maureen never told you that things were violent at home?
Violent, no. It had been, he had been increasingly hostile, intimidating. She used the word bullying, which she knew had bothered him.
Now, Maureen talked to you about her plans to tell Billy she was leaving him,
Yes,
and she talked with you after she told Bill that she was in fact leaving him.
can you restate that?
So Maureen talked to you about the conversation she had with Bill when she told him she was leaving. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, she told me that they were, agreeing that the house needed to be sold. She was gonna stay at Brenda's, wasn't sure where he was gonna be staying. I know that they were going to tell, my understanding was that they were going to tell the kids sometime like midweek, so maybe the day after I talked, they were going to like sit them down and tell them at some point that
We're gonna
week.
talk with them together.
Yes.
When did Maureen find out that she was able to move to Brenda's home, that Brenda's home was going to be made available to her?
Oh, I mean, Brenda had been offering it for quite some time, the summer before maybe even. I think it was, you know, people offer things and you have to be in the right place to want to accept it. So I think it had been offered to her previously, but I can't tell you like when they had a talk about like, I think probably maybe the month before or something like that. I don't know.
All right. Did you get along well with Bill when Maureen and Bill were married?
I did not get along with him. I mean, he's very charismatic. Life of the party. Like he's likable when he's there, joking and I don't have any bad memories of engaging with him. No, I mean, he's even helped with moves and loaning us his truck. Yeah, I don't have any
So the reason
between me and
why-
him. No, I don't have anything bad between me and him.
The reason
No.
why you and Maureen often spent time together without Bill was not because you disliked Bill.
No,
Not because
no,
you
he
didn't
was
want to
always
be
welcome. No, she just always said he was working.
Okay.
So, yep.
If I could have one more. I think those are all the questions I have for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Judge.
Okay, and may this witness be excused by both sides?
Yes.
Okay. You can step down, and you can stay or leave as you choose. Thank you.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, why don't we take our morning recess? As soon as you're ready, we'll come on back. Anything? Everybody else set? Do you need?
Judge, I do want to discuss, or we want to discuss scheduling. So we have
Sure.
3 more witnesses for today. That will not take us through late afternoon. We may finish up very quickly after lunch.
Okay.
We don't have any other witnesses scheduled for today. The only witnesses we have remaining are the 2 expert witnesses who are being flown in. They'll be testifying first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you for sharing the scheduling, and just keep that in mind from the defense side, and whatever we need for time, we have it. So, and I know as I said earlier, I provided the jury instructions in a print form. If there's anything, and other than the instruction I told you I forgot to include, if you want that in, I'll provide you a new draft copies just so you can see how it's set up. And, but if you don't mind taking a minute to review the document again in case there's something more that you'd like me to include. Thank you.
Your Honor, just for planning purposes, if we finish like at noon tomorrow or at 2 o'clock tomorrow, can we do closing on Monday?
if we ended up at noon, I'd probably want to do closing and argument on Friday, yeah?
All right.
But, we'll play it by ear. I'm not going to, and I certainly will get input from council. I'm not going to be unreasonable in any way about it. But if there's plenty of time and everybody's ready, then we'll move forward.
All right, thank you.
So for planning purposes, and I'll rely on the court and defense counsel's discretion, I was going to seek an extension beyond the 1 hour summation time. I anticipate I'll probably be an hour and a half.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay, and that will play into my decision as well. So if, as we continue on, the defense wishes to share their anticipated length, that will help me make a decision. Okay, thank you.
All rise.
You just can't see it from here, so I
Yeah,
just give it
oh,
a stage.
I can move it. I can move the clock. Sorry, Heather, just let me.
No, I'm good.
Actually, I can't. They rearranged everything, so.
Oh, okay.
So,
You know what I'm saying? Again, this is why you're here. Stay here.
We can focus on the task. Thank you for providing those transcripts.
Okay, of course. That was an easy task.
I'm trying to get along.
you said you go to the property. I will go.
rise for the judge and jury, please. You may be seated.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Raymond Caron to the stand.
Sir, if you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to provide this court and jury shall be the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Once you're settled in and close enough to that microphone, if you could state your full name for our court reporter and spell your last name.
My name is Raymond Caron, last name Caron.
Thank you, Mr. Caron. And I want to remind you, Mr. Caron, because we're all wearing masks, it's a little bit harder to hear, so if you could project your voice normally, louder than you normally would. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Caron.
Good morning.
Mr. Caron, are you familiar with William Argie?
I am.
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please identify him and describe an article of clothing he's wearing for the record?
Sure. He's the third person at the defendant table wearing glasses.
Your Honor, if the record would please reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
It will.
Mr. Caron, how do you know the defendant?
He's one of my best friends.
When did you two become friends?
1999.
Can you explain how the two of you became friends?
College courses. We were taking the same one and just clicked from there.
And at that time, what were you two going to school for?
I was doing prerequisite coursing for nursing, and William was taking courses. I believe it was for physical therapy, later for PA.
And by PA, do you mean physician's assistant?
I do.
Through the years, how would you describe your relationship with the defendant?
William has always been one of my best friends.
Were you in his wedding?
I was.
Are you familiar with any of his other close friends?
I am.
And who are some of those friends?
TJ, Dan LaRochelle, Tank.
And from your friendship with the defendant, did you meet and come to know his wife, Maureen Argie?
Yes.
How would you describe Maureen?
She was a saint. She was a sweet soul. She always looked for the good in everyone. She was quiet, but just sweet, a sweet person.
From your friendship with the defendant, did you also become familiar with his mother, Brenda Quinn?
I did.
Can you describe what the defendant's relationship was like with her?
Very tight.
I'd like to direct your attention to March 2018. Do you recall an intervention for the defendant around that time?
I do.
And we're just going to talk about that for a few minutes. Was one of the purposes of that intervention to address the defendant's verbal abuse of Maureen?
Yes.
Who attended that intervention?
Myself, Dan LaRochelle, Brenda Quinn, Billy's sisters, and Maureen and Billy.
Without getting into anybody else's statements at the intervention, can you describe the defendant's demeanor and body language toward Maureen at the intervention?
He was very pissed.
What did
Very
you see?
angry.
Can you describe what you saw about him that made you know that?
He was glaring at her, very clenched fist, very tight-jawed, and just staring her down.
Immediately following the intervention, do you recall whether the defendant still considered you a friend?
I hadn't spoke to Billy for a couple of months after the intervention.
Did the defendant tell you how he felt about you after the intervention?
He told us that, well, told me that he felt betrayed by our friendship.
Do you recall reconnecting with the defendant around June 2018?
I do,
And can you explain how you two reconnected?
at my wedding.
I'd like to now direct your attention to March 2019. This is State's Exhibit 42, a numbered chart that the jury's familiar with. During this time frame, was your cell phone number circled right here?
Correct.
603-860-1914?
Yes,
All right, thank you. So again, during March 2019, during that time frame, do you recall whether the defendant left you a voicemail during the days before Maureen's death?
I do.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 43, a communications chart. And right here, I'd just like to direct your attention, 3:35 p.m. on March 31st, a sent phone call to 603-860-1914. Again, is that your phone number?
It is.
Oh, sorry. And in response to that, that voicemail that he left you, do you recall whether you actually connected with the defendant?
I called him back after that, after I got the message.
Now, during this time frame, do you recall whether you were in regular contact with the defendant?
I was in touch with William approximately every month, a month and a half. We had a little downtime after the holidays. Prior to the holidays, we were talking on a monthly basis.
All right, and now I'm going to direct your attention to April 2nd, 2019. And you testified that you called him back.
Yes.
And does this communications chart reflect your call back to him on April 2nd, 2019?
It does.
So during that phone call that you had with the defendant on April 2nd, was about 1,545 seconds, or about 26 minutes. Do you recall the defendant saying how he was doing?
I do.
And what did he say?
He was not doing good. He was in a bad place. He was very angry and sad at the same time.
Do you recall him saying anything about his job status?
At that time, I do recall him saying he didn't have a job.
What do you recall him saying about the status of his marriage?
That it was crumbling, that Maureen was asking for a divorce.
Do you recall him discussing bankruptcy?
I do.
And what did he say about that?
That the house is being repossessed, that they don't have anything.
Do you recall him discussing where Maureen and his kids would be living?
I do.
And what did he say?
He said that his mother was going to take them in.
And how did he feel about that?
Betrayed, left out, nervous and scared, not knowing where he was going to be able to go. His words were that he wasn't able to go back home because the kids were or to his mom's house because the kids and Maureen would be there.
Now, you know, the defendant, you said, talked to you about filing for bankruptcy, how he wasn't working. Do you remember what else he said regarding why he was in such a bad financial place?
Because he gambled everything away. He just couldn't contain himself when it came to gambling.
Prior to this call, do you recall the defendant talking to you about his issues regarding gambling?
I do.
And do you recall any conversations with the defendant where he discussed the sources of the money he used for his gambling?
I do.
And what sources of money did he use for his gambling?
His paychecks, he would go and gamble them away. All their funds for the house, he would gamble them away. Always thought that he was able to control it.
Do you also recall him saying that he would use college funds for gambling?
I remember him mentioning that he used all funds, that they didn't have any savings.
Did you participate in gambling with him?
I only went to the gambling room, or to a poker room once with Billy, and this is back when him and Maureen were dating. We went to Foxwoods.
So now I want to turn back to that call that you had with him on April 2nd. Did the defendant talk to you about his feelings regarding Maureen's intention to divorce him?
I do.
And what did he say about that?
He said he was torn. He was upset. He kept telling Maureen that he loved her, and she would say she loved him too, but that she still wanted to go forward with the divorce.
What was his tone like during this phone call?
Angry, pissed, and sad, all together.
When discussing what was going on with him and his family during this call, do you recall who the defendant was primarily concerned about?
The bulk of the call was, where is Billy going to be? Where is he going to be able to stay?
So the bulk of the call was Billy being concerned about Billy.
Yes.
And was that conversation that you had with the defendant on Tuesday, April 2nd, the last time that you heard from him before Maureen's death? That was just 2 days later.
Yes.
I'd now like to direct your attention to April 6th, 2019. Following Maureen's death, did the defendant contact you on that date?
He did.
When he called, did you recognize the number?
No.
Can you please tell the jury about that conversation, that initial conversation?
The call on the 6th was a call from William to myself, my home phone number. Actually, no, I think it was my cell phone. He was in a hospital in Connecticut, and he wanted me to get a hold of Brenda to let Brenda know where he was, that he was okay, and how he could be reached.
And after that call, what did you do?
I contacted the state police.
Did you speak with the defendant for a second time?
I did.
And that was on April 6th, 2019?
Yes,
Did you call him?
I did.
And was that phone call recorded by the New Hampshire State Police?
It was.
Did you consent to the recording of that call?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 40. Do you recognize the CD?
I do.
How do you recognize this?
This is the exhibit of the phone call.
Did you have an opportunity to listen to portions of this phone call prior to today?
I did.
And are those your initials indicated right there on the CD?
With the date, yes.
And does that indicate that you have listened to portions of this call?
The whole call, yes.
And when you listened to the phone call, were you able to identify the voices on that call?
Yes,
And when you first called, did you identify yourself on the call?
I did.
And the person that you were speaking with, the male voice on the call, for the majority of that call, whose voice is that?
William.
Okay, at this point, we're going to play State's Exhibit 40 for the jury, which is about 24 minutes long. And also, the recording will have the transcript of the recording playing beneath it. And if we could just have the lights dimmed just a little bit so people can follow along with the transcript if they'd like.
Hi, I'm trying to get a hold of William Argie.
William?
I'm a friend of his named Ray.
William? He's coming.
Okay, thank you.
I think so.
Hey, what's up? Nothing. How you doing? Yeah. I'm wondering what's the. I didn't get a hold of your mom because when I was getting your mom's phone number, your sister got a hold of me and told me that your mom already found out she was on her way.
On the way, what, here?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if I want that right now.
I don't think I can stop your mom getting there. I mean, I think if I was to try to stop your mom getting there, it would not be good. Your mother is come hell or high water. She's on her way to see you. But, I mean, this is pretty shocking there, Billy. I said, this is pretty shocking. You know, seeing everything unfold on the news and seeing everything that's happened.
I don't know if this is a good.
Okay.
Do you understand?
I do. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. How are you?
Sad. Very sad.
Okay. Alright, but, I mean, other than sad, I mean, dude, shit. Where were you?
Yeah, but this.
Okay. What happened, dude?
Ready to talk about it.
What is this place? What's this hospital in
It's a more bigger than a community hospital.
Okay.
But it's, you know, it's like it's actually, I would say it's a lot bigger because it's got like a 30 to 40 bed ER.
Holy crap, that's actually quite large. That's larger than...
Yeah, that's huge. It's huge. That's like when I was working at Lawrence General, we had 50 beds.
So, I mean, is this, are you at a regular hospital, or are you in a special...
Yeah, not a regular. Yeah, not a regular hospital, and then obviously, psych unit.
Okay. All right. Are they helping you? It's not been a day, but I mean, have you talked to anybody good down there about what's happened? Have you discussed anything? Have you been able to go over what's happened? Okay. I don't know, dude. Do you feel comfortable talking with me? Not yet. Alright, you know I'm here for you though, right?
Yeah, no, I know you guys. That's why I called you.
Okay, alright. It took me a while to feel up the confidence to call, Billy, I'll be honest with you. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, you know, I love you and everything like that, and, you know, I love your family, your kids, and Maureen, and just trying to wrap my head around it, which I'm sure you are.
I'm just trying to understand it too.
I'm probably going to be here till Wednesday.
Okay. Why on Wednesday?
Well, no, it's at least a 5-day admission.
Is it an involuntary admission or are you volunteering
Yeah.
there?
No, involuntary.
So you're IEA, so you can't leave if you wanted to.
But the average, and then the Connecticut state law, that can't be, it can't hold you more than 10 days.
Okay. Okay.
But anyways, let's just say Wednesday, okay?
Yeah. IEA there. I mean, why are you voluntarily admitted? You tried to kill yourself down there?
Renee, I have 6-inch, down to where I went into my radio artery on both sides.
So you tried cutting yourself?
I was successful in cutting myself.
You didn't know what I'm saying. You didn't know what I'm saying. But you weren't successful with completing the act. But you were successful in attempting.
Yeah. I want to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I don't know how I was it.
So,
Because I literally saw the radio artery, I severed it, and the blood was gushing out.
so, why did you try to do that, dude?
So I just,
Why did you try to take your own life?
not the time. Right. Right now, I can trust you. Right now, I can't trust this environment.
You know, really, it's the only environment you got.
I know.
You gotta tell people what's going on. I mean, shit, dude.
I know.
I'm confused all to hell.
I know.
You know, I mean, Wednesday or Tuesday, you're calling me and you're telling me that you love her, or you're gonna do your best to try to make it work. You guys will.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I know, Billy. I'm perplexed. You know, just trying to figure it out, dude. Trying to get ahead of what's going on. You know, and like you said, it's been just a short time here. I'm just trying to make sure you know what's going on. I know. That's why I'm trying to talk through it with you, bud. Okay, I'll wait on my That's fine, I'll give you a ride. I'll wait right here.
All right. Okay. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know who that is.
Somebody was trying to call. And ask for me.
Yeah, that's not me. That's not even my home phone number. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
But you did call your sister and left a message with her.
Yes.
So
But that's not her number either.
no, but it could be, she could be at somebody's home. She could be calling from somebody else's place. Okay. And like I said, I was trying to get the number to call your mom when I got ahold of your sister to get the number. She said that your mom had already found out this was on her way. So, to help me understand what's going on. Because, I mean, it's hard to try to put my head on a pillow at nighttime. I can just imagine what this was feeling for you.
I still don't believe, but if I...
You can talk to me, Billy. You can talk to me.
I know.
Take a breath. Relax.
I just want my kids taken care of. That's it.
You got the right person. You had your mom pick them up.
And, I want to talk to everybody and anybody, and, but I need to,
Do you want me to talk to these people? I mean, I'm going to be selling candies in Germany.
No. I need to get out of here, and then,
Are you going to...
whatever's happening after the state police was here last night.
Exactly. So if and when you leave there on Wednesday, where do you think you're going to go, Bill?
Well, they're at the,
That's what I'm trying to say. Maybe if you are able to talk through it and get through it, you're able to clear your head. I love you, dude, but you gotta work with me. You gotta tell me what the hell's going on. I mean, I got my wife not wanting me to leave the house. She's scared shitless. And I can only imagine what you're going through, dude.
Why don't you want to leave the house?
Billy, think about it. Think about what's happened. Think about what's happened. And my wife, you know how emotional Jen is. She's scared for you. She's scared for her. She's scared for our kids. I mean, dude, I know you can come over my house or anything like that, but that doesn't help the fact of what happened. You know?
So what's been on the news?
No, they just announced Maureen's name today. They won't say anything else, really. I'm sorry?
The news said that?
It's on WMUR's website. All it says is her name, and that the police have been working the scene at your house. They don't say anything about the children. I know that your mom's watching them, and Kelly and Karen are. I've got a hold of Danny and told Danny in Germany what's going on, but I mean, dude, he's in flight. I'm not going to be giving him updates till he gets here because he won't even be able to handle the flight.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out for myself what the hell's going on, dude. How can some guy I played golf with, some guy who sat with my mom and held her hand after Dad died, do something like this?
Alright, alright, I gotta get going, right? Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Do you want me to call you back?
No. No.
Can you tell me anything, Billy?
I haven't done anything other than just try to take my life.
And what happened, Maureen? What happened, Maureen?
I don't know.
me something, but he gotta tell me something. Did you guys get an argument? I knew you wouldn't hurt her on purpose.
I gotta get going. Right. Okay.
I'd like to say okay, Billy, but I don't want to hang up.
I know.
I love you guys, and I don't want to hang up. I want you to be able to.
Yeah, I love you too, buddy, but I'm.
How would you run back to Hampshire, Billy? That's what I'm trying to ascertain, Bill. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
They're the ones that told me that I'm not going back with them now.
Who told you that?
Take police.
In Connecticut?
No, it has nothing to do with it.
Well, other than the fact that you're in Connecticut, I would probably agree with you, but I mean...
Yeah, I mean, they didn't even call the Connecticut State Police to come.
Yeah, I just don't want you to go through this alone. Okay? I don't want other people to know what's going on here. I want you to be able to tell me what's going on. I want you to be able to let me go through this with you. Let me be there with you.
Yeah. It's all too early.
It's gonna get really late really quick. Wednesday's gonna be a blink away.
Yeah,
I know you love her. I mean, you told me that 30 times when we talked on the phone on Tuesday.
Wait. Okay.
I've been there for you, Billy. You know this.
I know. Okay. But I don't, they said no, but I don't trust. I don't trust it.
Who said no?
This isn't being recorded.
Okay. Who said no to that?
So.
I hear you. You don't need to be afraid, Bill. You need to tell people what happened.
Yeah, but you know what?
Up the police station. All right.
Yeah. I know.
scared for you, dude. You tell me you're trying to keep your own life.
Scared for myself.
Oof.
Scared for my kids.
That's what you need to fucking talk over. Talk this over with me.
You know? Scared that I had the world and, you know?
You still can't have the world, Billy. You just can't have all.
Not tonight, James.
You can't have all.
What I heard, they told me.
Who told you?
Dick Lewis.
No. And why did you try to hurt yourself then? Didn't you already know? Because that doesn't make sense. You have to have a guy to do something like that. You know, you've got way too much going on with you and your kids don't want to take your own life.
Yeah. I probably won't be able to talk to her.
True, honestly, it might be a good idea not to go on the wrong side because I know your mom's going to be a lot of help you.
I just totally limited that. I don't, if you know what, it's time for me to be selfish. Okay? Everybody's saying, heal me. Well, I'm being selfish now. I'm healing me, and everything outside of these walls I don't care about right now.
I understand.
So,
And I'm glad you're finally stepping up and, you know, not letting
yeah. So, I think it's an asshole way of being, but,
No, you've been living your whole life with your mother and sisters and everybody telling you what to do. Now's your time. Now's your time. You said you need to heal. You need to do what you need to do. I agree with you. That's not for good.
anyways, I do want to talk to you, but can I have a break?
Yeah, I'll call you back. You can talk.
Call me back, let me call me back in a few hours.
Call you back in a couple hours?
Yeah. I'll put you on, yeah, I'll put you on the list. Yeah, I'll put you on the list.
All right.
I haven't put anybody on the list because I haven't been able to get a hold of anybody.
I'll put me on the list, but I'll call you in a couple hours. All right? But I want you to talk to me. You gotta be, I love you. Please figure this out and talk to me. Okay?
All right.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Mr. Caron, I'd like to ask you some questions about the conversation that you just heard. At the start of the call, you and the defendant discussed the hospital he was staying at, the type of hospital and its size. Did he talk to you about why he was at the hospital?
No, I think I brought it up to him,
What did he say he did that landed him in the hospital?
that he tried to commit suicide. He tried cutting himself. Or he accomplished that.
Did you ask him why he tried to kill himself?
I did.
And what was his response?
That he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to go over it.
At one point during the call, the defendant was talking to you about wanting people to respect when he wanted to talk. Did he discuss people telling him in the past that everything was going to be okay and he was going to get through it?
Yes, he said that everyone was always telling him that, and it didn't make it any better.
And Mr. Caron, I'm just going to ask you to keep your voice up just so the jury can hear you.
Sure.
Toward the end of the call, what did he tell you? Who did he tell you at the end of the call was his priority?
He was.
During the call, did you ever ask him what happened to Maureen?
Several times.
What was his response?
That he wasn't ready to talk about it.
Did he also tell you that he didn't know?
He did. He mentioned that once in there.
Did he talk to you about the state police notifying him about Maureen?
He did. He said that they had informed him that she had passed.
Did he ask you any questions about Maureen?
No, other than what was going on the news.
Did he express any concern for her?
No.
Have you spoken to the defendant since that recorded telephone call?
No.
If I may just have a moment. Okay, I have no further questions at this time. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Caron.
Good morning.
After the intervention, did Mr. Billy Argie basically tell you and Dan that you guys were dead to him?
Yes.
And took a phone call from you a couple months later to make sure that Billy was coming to your wedding?
There was a communication just prior to the wedding.
Okay, so 2 months went by and he was still angry.
I gathered so. He never communicated back.
But when you saw, he came to the wedding.
Yes.
He came to the wedding with Maureen,
Correct.
and they appeared to be doing better.
They appeared to be Billy and Maureen. I don't know how you would categorize better.
Okay, well, it was better than the intervention.
Yes.
It's fair to say that since the wedding, you had not had any contact, much contact with Maureen,
Correct.
and your contacts were primarily with Billy.
Correct.
And when you had contacts with Billy, let me go back to the intervention. In addition to, I think you said that the purpose of the intervention was because Billy was verbally
Aggressive.
Who organized the intervention?
I believe it was organized through Brenda, because we met at her house prior to going to Billy and Maureen's home to go over what we were to go to the intervention for.
And was there a professional there?
What do you mean by professional?
Did anybody there with experience in facilitating an intervention?
No.
All right. So did you meet at Brenda's house the same day as you went to intervene on Billy's behalf?
I believe so, yes.
And when you met at Brenda's house, it wasn't the topic of gambling discussed?
That was one of the topics.
And wasn't it the topic that Maureen was concerned about?
I don't understand. I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Didn't Maureen express concerns about Billy's gambling at that meeting?
Amongst other things, correct. Well, Maureen wasn't at that meeting.
Maureen was not at the meeting at Brenda's house?
No.
She was not one of the ones that was participating in the intervention?
She was, but she wasn't there. She was at home with Billy.
And so after the wedding, you said that you talked to Billy or saw Billy about once every other month after that?
Every month to month and a half up until around the holidays. Then after the holidays, we kind of lost touch.
And it's fair to say that when you guys got in touch, you would just sort of catch up with each other's family's life?
I would ask him how he's doing, how the kids are doing, how everything's going on at home, and he'd do the same.
So it's just a normal conversation.
Correct. there were other things that happened during that time frame as well.
Right, and I'm not asking you about
Okay.
that. So when you heard from Billy in April of 2019, that wasn't necessarily a surprise to you?
No, I mean, he had called me a couple days before that and left me a message to get a hold of him.
Okay, and so at some point you guys talked. You talked the next day when you returned the call, or
I think it was a couple
same
days,
day?
but yeah.
Okay, and when you talked for about a half hour,
Give or take.
and that's not unusual when you talk to Billy.
No, usually our conversations are a lot longer.
Okay, and so when he started the conversation, he asked about your family.
This conversation went straight into what was going on.
And in terms of what's going on, he was telling you that there is a divorce, that Maureen was filing for a divorce. Right?
Oh, correct, yes.
And that they had to sell the house,
Correct?
and there was talk of bankruptcy,
Correct?
and that Maureen was going to be moving in with his mother.
Maureen and the children,
Yeah.
yes.
And that he didn't have a job that day.
He told me he did not have a job.
And you tried to talk him through it, right?
Yeah?
You were talking him through about how hard he should try in reconciling, right?
I actually told him to stop asking Maureen why she wanted a divorce. I told him to stop asking her, does she love him? Because any answer he gets is not going to be one he likes.
And he received that advice.
He said that, yeah.
He said, thank you, you have a way of, like, explaining things.
I don't think he used those words, but yes.
Okay, and so it's fair to say when somebody's life is changing, such as a divorce, it's not unusual to reach out to a best friend.
Correct.
And you described him as being angry and pissed and sad at the same time. That's not unusual for Billy. He has a range of emotions. That's
Yeah.
accurate?
I would say going through that, yes.
All right. And at the end of the conversation, he was just sad and appreciative of your advice.
Correct. There was actually, at the end of the conversation, we had mentioned about getting together on Saturday with me, him, and Danny.
And Danny, who was that day,
Was in Germany.
Germany.
Or on his way, no, he was in Germany at the time. He wasn't on his way home yet.
I may have a moment, Your Honor.
You may.
Oh, by the way, after you talked to Bill on, I guess it was the 5th or the 6th,
On the phone call?
yeah.
Yeah.
You saw Dan when he came back from Germany?
I didn't see him right away, no. We spoke when he got back and touched base, and I tried to get him up to date about where Billy was, what had happened, but that's about as far as it went. We didn't
And-
see each other for a little while.
Okay, so you talked on the phones with him?
Mhm.
You talked on the phone with his family?
With Billy's family?
Yeah.
No. No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, may this witness be excused by both sides?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sir, you can step down, you can stay or leave as you choose. Thank you.
Thank you.
It might make sense to have our lunch recess unless you have a witness.
Yes, no, the next witness will not be a 15-minute.
Okay,
witness,
great.
Judge, so that seems prudent.
Okay, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we can be back at a quarter of the hour to resume, remember all my instructions to you. Thank you so much.